I stood at the edge of the lobby, 10 feet away from him, watching him lean into a younger woman, laughing like she belonged there. My husband, Mark, 37, didn't even know I was standing there. The sunlight poured through the glass walls, warm and golden, and I could hear the soft click of his shoes on the marble floor as if they were counting down the seconds of my life. He rested his hand on her lower back, and it wasn't hesitant. It was familiar, natural. That was the moment I felt the last thread snap. 23 years. 23 years of waking up next to him, of sharing birthdays, of folding laundry side by side. All of it. Gone in a glance, in a touch, in that laugh that wasn't meant for me. I didn't move. I didn't call his name. I just watched. The receptionist typed quietly at the desk, glasses sliding down her nose. I knew the words he would say on the phone because I had heard them before. I'm in a meeting. Perfectly mundane. Perfectly cold. He was lying right in front of me. And I was finally seeing the truth. My knees stayed steady, which surprised me. I expected tears, shaking, something. But there was only stillness. I slipped my phone into my bag, the one I had just used to call him, to hear him lie again. I had been patient long enough. Months of noticing the small changes, late meetings, stronger cologne, phone always face down, receipts that didn't match trips, had all led to this. A week ago, I had sat in a quiet office with Janet, my lawyer. Calm, measured, experienced. She didn't blink when I told her everything. I told her I didn't want a scene. I wanted clarity. Papers were signed, copies made, envelopes sealed, timing considered. All for this moment, watching them and keeping control. Not for him, for me. The elevator doors closed behind them and the lobby hummed quietly. Ordinary. The world didn't notice, but I did. I breathed in. I let it settle. Then I walked to the desk. "Hi," I said, small, polite. The receptionist's eyes flickered, a hesitation I didn't acknowledge. I placed the envelope down. I'd appreciate it if this could be given to my husband when he checks out. She nodded slowly, the weight of reality pressing down. I'll make sure he gets it personally. That was all I needed. I stepped outside. The Arizona heat hit my skin, unforgiving and sharp. I didn't look back. The change hadn't happened overnight. It had been creeping in, quiet, unnoticed. Birthdays, minor forgetfulness, empty promises, all pieces of the puzzle. But now it was done. He would see it, all of it, and he would not understand. I had chosen. I had decided. 23 years had been long enough to build a life, habits, and routines that seemed permanent, and yet they had all become background noise. I remembered my 52nd birthday, the messages that never came, the empty chair at dinner. I had been optional, invisible. But now I wasn't, not anymore. When he checked out, he wouldn't just carry a receipt. He would carry the truth. And I would carry myself for the first time in years with the clarity and control that had been absent for too long. I drove home, calm, deliberate, each breath measured. The house looked the same, but I had changed. I had reclaimed it. I had reclaimed me. He walked in later, expecting to surprise me, to confront me, to control the narrative. He found me at the kitchen table, calm, seated, eyes steady. "Linda," he said. I didn't answer immediately. I let him look at the envelope, let him realize. He tried to speak. He tried to argue. I let the silence stretch, heavy and precise. Then I said, "It's over. It's been over for a while. I'm just finalizing it." His face went pale. He couldn't argue. Not with the paper, not with the quiet, not with me. I had chosen this. I had acted for myself, not for revenge, not for him. Control, clarity, freedom, these were mine now. I stood, gathered my bag, and walked out, to stay with Carla for a few days, to breathe, to rebuild, to remind myself that being invisible is a choice. And for the first time in decades, I refused it. The first night at Carla's house was quiet in a way that felt almost foreign. I sat in the guest room, the hum of the air conditioner the only sound. The city outside was dark, streets empty, and the occasional car passing made the walls vibrate lightly. I kept thinking about the lobby, about Mark and Emily. The memory made my chest tighten. I couldn't breathe deeply without remembering the way his hand rested on her back. Carla brought me a cup of tea. She didn't ask too many questions, just handed it over with a look that said she understood. I sipped slowly. The warmth slid down my throat and settled in my stomach, something grounding for the first time in days. "You okay?" she asked finally. I nodded, but my mind was elsewhere. I wasn't okay. Not really. Not until I had control back. By morning, I had made a plan. I would not wait for Mark to explain. I would not beg, not argue, not hope. I had learned what he had shown me in that lobby. I had been invisible for too long. Now, I would be deliberate. I packed my documents, double-checked the envelopes, and made sure every paper was correct. Carla watched me with a quiet intensity. "Are you sure?" she asked. I met her eyes steadily. "Yes," I said. There was no hesitation. I drove into the city slowly, feeling the heat of the late morning sun on my hands, gripping the steering wheel. The streets were alive with people moving, oblivious to the storm I carried. My phone buzzed. I didn't answer. I wasn't looking for communication. I was looking for closure. Every red light, every pedestrian crossing gave me time to rehearse the words I wouldn't need to say aloud. It's over. Arriving at the firm's office, I felt the weight in my chest shift slightly. The receptionist, a young woman with sharp brown eyes, looked up and smiled politely. I walked past her without hesitation, straight into the conference room. There, Mark was seated with his team, Emily at his side. They didn't notice me at first. I placed the folder on the table, neatly organized, and waited. Mark looked up. Confusion first, then recognition. His mouth opened, closed. He didn't speak. The room was quiet, professional. I didn't shout, I didn't accuse. I simply lifted the top document. Hotel receipts, phone records, corporate accounts, every detail aligned perfectly. The team exchanged glances. Mark's posture changed. His confident facade cracked, just slightly, but enough. "Madison," he said finally, voice tight. I looked at him directly. "It's exactly what you think." Silence followed. Emily shifted beside him, discomfort obvious. Mark's hands fidgeted with his pen. "This isn't," he began. I cut him off gently. "It is, and it's done. No anger, no theatrics, just clarity." The HR manager stepped forward, professional and calm. "We'll be reviewing this immediately," she said. Mark swallowed hard. I watched as the weight of his choices settled on him, as if the room itself reminded him of everything he had ignored for years. I didn't gloat. I didn't smirk. I simply felt something I hadn't in a long time. Control. Full, absolute control. Walking out of the office, the sun hit my face again. Warm, steady, real. I inhaled deeply. The city felt different somehow. Ordinary people moved through their routines, but I had reclaimed mine. This wasn't just a victory. It was a rebirth. The power wasn't in revenge. It was in taking ownership of my life, my choices, my dignity. That evening, I sat alone in my apartment, the envelope unopened except for a few carefully reviewed papers. My hands rested on the table, and I let the quiet fill the room. I didn't need anyone else to validate what I had done. I had seen, I had acted, and I had survived. And for the first time in years, the reflection in the mirror felt like me again. Tomorrow, I would begin the next step, slowly, deliberately, one decision at a time. But tonight, I allowed myself to feel the weight lift, even just a little. I made a promise to myself. I would never disappear for anyone again. I would not let anyone diminish me, control me, or erase me. Not Mark, not Emily, not the years that had tried to define me. And if you are sitting there, wondering if anyone has ever understood what it's like to reclaim yourself, know this: you can. You don't need permission. You don't need a reason. You just need to decide. Decide that your life, your dignity, and your peace are yours to take back. And maybe, just maybe, you'll find that freedom is the most powerful revenge of all. If this story has struck a chord, maybe share it with someone who needs to hear it. Sometimes, seeing someone else take control is the spark we need to reclaim our own lives. The morning light spilled through the blinds, painting stripes across the hardwood floor. I sat at the small kitchen table, my hands wrapped around a mug of coffee that had gone cold while I replayed yesterday's events. Every detail of the office, every glance, every hesitation from Mark, every tightened jaw, burned into my mind. Carla was asleep in the guest room, the house silent except for the faint hum of the refrigerator. I let out a slow breath, feeling the tension in my shoulders ease slightly, but only slightly. I had won control, yes, but I had not yet taken the next step. By 9 o'clock, I was dressed. Simple blouse, slacks, low heels, nothing flashy, perfectly ordinary, and that was the point. I needed to appear unremarkable, underestimated. Mark had been blind to my strength for decades, and today I would continue to use that to my advantage. I stepped outside. The sun was warm, but the air carried that subtle crispness that comes with early spring mornings. The neighborhood hummed with life, dogs barking, a lawnmower droning, distant voices. But I moved through it as if invisible. Carla waited by the car. She handed me the folder with documents. "Are you sure you're ready?" she asked. Her eyes searched mine. I nodded. "I am. Today it ends." She gave a brief, tight smile. "Then let's make sure they understand who's in control." The drive to the firm was quiet. I kept my eyes on the road, but my mind traced every possible reaction Mark might have, every possible interruption, every face in that office. My heartbeat matched the rhythm of the windshield wipers passing over the morning drizzle, steady, deliberate. Arriving at the building, I walked through the revolving doors like a storm approaching. The lobby was bright, antiseptic, filled with the low murmur of people on their phones and the clicking of heels on polished stone. I did not pause. I did not falter. The receptionist glanced up. I smiled faintly and walked past without a word, feeling the weight of purpose in every step. Mark was already in the conference room. Emily was there too. They didn't notice me at first. I placed the folder carefully on the table and waited. The room shifted. The air thickened. Mark looked up. Confusion, recognition, fear, just beneath the surface. He didn't speak. His hand twitched on the pen, small gestures revealing cracks in his composure. I opened the top document. Hotel receipts, credit card statements, call logs, notes. Every detail aligned perfectly. The team around him murmured quietly, shifting in their seats. I felt no need to raise my voice. I let the evidence speak. Mark swallowed. His face went pale. Emily's hand hovered near her mouth, a gesture of shock. He looked at me, desperate for control, but control had already left him. The HR manager stepped forward, professional, calm, precise. "This requires immediate review," she said. Mark's jaw tightened. I watched the muscles flex, his confident mask cracking in the fluorescent light. I did not smile. I did not gloat. I simply exhaled slowly, letting the truth sit between us like a weight pressing on his chest. For the first time, he realized the consequences of years of underestimating me. I stepped back and let him absorb it. He was small now, contained, measured, the illusion of power gone. My hand stayed steady on the folder, my heart steady too. The quiet hum of the office felt like a drumbeat, counting out the final moments of the life he had thought he controlled. I had not raised my voice, not screamed, not made a scene. I had let clarity and deliberate action do the work. As I walked out, the sunlight hit me fully and I inhaled deep. The world was the same. The city hummed, cars moved, people talked. But I had changed. I had reclaimed my authority. I had chosen. Every step away from that building reinforced it. I would not disappear. I would not allow my dignity to be ignored. My life was mine again. By evening, I sat in my apartment alone but not lonely. The envelope was still on the table, a quiet reminder of what had been taken for granted. I ran my fingers over it, feeling the paper beneath my fingertips. I had taken control. I had acted. And soon, I would continue to build the life I wanted. The power wasn't in revenge. It was in reclaiming myself piece by piece. And anyone watching this, anyone who has felt invisible, needs to hear this. You can take control too. You can stand up. You can be seen. And it starts with one deliberate step. If you are listening right now, consider this your permission. Step forward. Make your life yours again. You don't need permission from anyone else. You just need to decide. I woke to the sound of rain tapping against the window, steady and insistent. The apartment was quiet except for the soft hum of the heater. I sat on the edge of the bed, hands clasped, feeling the weight of the morning. My phone buzzed. Carla had texted, asking if I needed coffee. I didn't answer right away. I wasn't ready to speak. I needed a plan, not chatter. By 9:30, I was dressed and out the door. Simple navy sweater, black slacks, flats that had seen better days. I didn't care about looking impressive. I cared about being unnoticed until the right moment. The streets were slick with rain, headlights reflecting in the puddles. I gripped the steering wheel, knuckles white, taking deep breaths to steady my racing heart. Today, I was going back into the office. Today, I would finish what I started. I parked 2 blocks away and walked, umbrella in hand. The wind tugged at my coat. The city smelled of wet asphalt and coffee from the corner cafe. People hurried past, umbrellas bobbing. None of them knew I had spent the last few days quietly preparing, gathering evidence, reading emails, tracing every irregularity. They didn't know I had power they assumed I lacked. Inside the building, the receptionist glanced up, curious. I smiled politely and passed without a word. The elevator doors closed with a soft ding. My stomach tightened. On the 4th floor, I stepped out, walked the short hall, and entered the conference room. Mark and Emily were there. Their chatter stopped when they saw me. I placed the folder on the table. Credit card statements, hotel receipts, text logs, everything neatly organized, every detail precise. Mark's face went pale. Emily's eyes widened. He opened his mouth. Nothing came out. I leaned back slightly, arms crossed, watching. The HR manager, a tall woman with sharp features, cleared her throat. "We need to review this immediately," she said. Mark swallowed hard. His confident mask was gone. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. The weight of truth did it for me. I watched him shift in his chair, hands tightening around a pen. He tried to speak, tried to control the narrative, but every word faltered. The employees in the room exchanged glances, recognizing what I already knew. I had the upper hand. I had control. Mark's jaw clenched. Emily fidgeted. I kept my gaze calm, steady. I didn't smirk. I didn't laugh, just clarity. Each breath I took reminded me that I had been underestimated for years. Every small dismissal, every ignored opinion, every invisible day I had endured was irrelevant now. They had all miscalculated. I opened another section of the folder. Bank transfers, emails, meeting notes, every piece of evidence lined up perfectly. His schemes, his lies, his attempts to manipulate, laid bare in black and white. He hadn't accounted for one thing: my patience, my attention to detail, my resolve. I had been watching, learning, waiting, and now he was exposed. The HR manager stepped closer. "You'll stay after this meeting," she said. Mark's hands twitched. He looked at me, seeking something: sympathy, forgiveness, control, but found none. I leaned slightly forward. "I'm not here to punish," I said quietly. "I'm here to be seen, to reclaim what has been ignored for too long." The words hung in the air, heavy, deliberate, true. After the meeting, I walked out into the sunlight. Rain had slowed. The air smelled fresh, clean. I inhaled, filling my lungs for the first time in days. The world was ordinary. People moved through their routines. Cars drove by. Conversations carried in soft waves. And I walked among them, unshaken, invisible no longer, powerful not because I had revenge, but because I had reclaimed myself. Carla's voice buzzed in my pocket. I glanced at it, smiled slightly. I didn't reply. Not yet. I had one more step to take, one more move to finalize the closure I had meticulously crafted. This wasn't about anger. It wasn't about proving him wrong. It was about restoring my life, piece by piece, step by deliberate step. And as I stepped into the city streets, puddles reflecting the soft morning light, I realized that power wasn't in the confrontation. Power was in the calm, in the measured action, in taking ownership of what was mine. I had been underestimated. I had been invisible. But now, I was neither. I was seen. I was steady. I was ready. If you are sitting there wondering if someone can take back control of their life, know this: you can. You don't need to shout. You don't need to make a scene. Quiet, deliberate action is the most powerful voice you have. Step into it and let yourself be seen. The first day in my new apartment felt heavier than I expected. I unpacked slowly, each box a reminder of years spent accommodating someone else's life. Tyler, my son, sat on the edge of his bed, quietly stacking his toys. He didn't look up. The house felt empty, yet full of memory. I touched the counter, the polished wood cold under my fingers, and realized I was building something entirely new, but alone. The phone rang. Carla. Her voice was calm. "You okay?" I didn't answer immediately. I wanted to feel the quiet. I wanted to hear myself breathe without interruption. I finally said, "I will be." It was enough for her. I hung up and moved to the living room. The sunlight cut through the blinds, painting long stripes across the floor. Dust floated in the beams. I could hear the faint hum of the refrigerator and the city beyond. This silence was strange, unfamiliar, yet safe. I went to the kitchen, opened the drawer where I had kept my favorite mug. I ran my hand over it, tracing the worn rim. For a moment, I allowed myself to think about the years with Mark. Not the pain, not the betrayal, just the ordinary moments. Saturday mornings at Costco, small jokes over coffee, bedtime stories for Tyler. They were gone, and that was okay. I could make new routines, ones that were mine. By afternoon, I decided to leave the apartment. I drove slowly to the park nearby, Tyler holding my hand. The air was crisp. The scent of damp grass mixed with the faint smell of spring blooms. He ran ahead, laughing, chasing the pigeons. I watched him, letting myself smile. I hadn't realized how tense my shoulders had been until they relaxed in the warmth of the sun. I felt small, yes, but capable. Stronger than I had in years. The next few days passed quietly. I registered for a yoga class at the community center. Mostly women my age, some older. We stretched, we laughed, shared stories of work, children, life. I noticed the way my body moved, how muscles I hadn't used in years responded. I learned patience again, discipline, balance. Each pose became a lesson in control, each breath a reminder that I could rebuild myself deliberately. One evening, Carla stopped by with coffee and muffins. Tyler had homework spread across the dining table. I sat down with her. "You're different," she said, voice soft but certain. I looked at her. "I feel different," I admitted. It wasn't arrogance, it was recognition. I had been underestimated for years. People thought I would crumble, that I would disappear, that I would remain passive. But here I was, present, steady, reclaiming the narrative of my life. 2 weeks later, I received a call from my lawyer. Janet's voice was brisk, precise. "Everything with the firm has been finalized. The assets are secure. You have full control." I felt the weight lift just slightly. I thanked her, hung up. I let the quiet settle. The air seemed softer, as if acknowledging the shift. I walked to the window and looked at the city skyline. Everything felt real, tangible, mine to navigate. That night, Tyler asleep, I made a small dinner for myself, simple, balanced. I sat at the table, alone, but not lonely. The plates and silverware felt like markers of a new chapter, of control regained. I realized something crucial. Revenge had never been the goal. The goal had been to reclaim dignity, self-respect, and authority over my life. The satisfaction lay in quiet, in clarity, in deliberate choice. I placed the envelope that Mark had received in the small safe I had set up, not as a trophy, not as a weapon, but as evidence that I could act, that I could protect myself. I understood finally that my power didn't come from anger, but from preparation, patience, and the courage to act when it mattered most. And as the city lights glimmered in the distance, I promised myself that I would continue this path, not with haste, not recklessly, but with intention. Each day, each choice, each small victory reaffirmed that I was not invisible, not powerless, and not defined by the past. I had found my control, my dignity, and I would guard it fiercely for myself and for Tyler. If you're listening and wondering if reclaiming your life is possible, know this: it is. One step, one deliberate choice. That is where power begins. The morning air was crisp when I stepped outside, the sky pale with early light. I held Tyler's hand, feeling the warmth in his small palm. He glanced up at me with a half smile, sleepy eyes still rimmed with night. The street was quiet, the kind of quiet that makes every step echo. I breathed slowly, letting the cold air fill my lungs. Today, I would face the bank, the office, every place where power had been denied to me for too long. Carla drove us. Her car was steady, her hands relaxed on the wheel, but I could feel her tension. "You ready for this?" she asked softly. I nodded, my voice caught. I have to be. It's time they see what I'm capable of. The office loomed ahead, glass and steel reflecting the morning sun. I took a step, then another, and the sound of my heels against the pavement felt louder than it should have. Each echo was a heartbeat, reminding me of every day I had been underestimated. Inside, the receptionist looked up. I smiled faintly and walked past, not breaking stride. The elevator doors closed with a soft ding. I pressed the button for the top floor and felt the weight of anticipation in my chest. Mark was already in the conference room, his team gathered. Emily perched close by. Their chatter stopped. Their eyes flicked to me, confusion first, recognition next. I didn't flinch. I didn't speak. I placed the folder on the table. Credit card statements, receipts, emails, meeting notes, every irregularity marked and highlighted. I felt the room shift. Mark's posture stiffened. Emily's hand clutched the chair. The HR manager leaned forward, voice calm but firm. "We will review this immediately," she said. The words were simple, but their weight pressed down on Mark. His confident air was gone. Each breath he took seemed measured, calculated. I opened another section of the folder: bank transfers, expense reports, call logs. Every detail aligned perfectly. He tried to speak, but the words faltered. His team watched silently, realization dawning. I had not raised my voice. I had not accused. I had let the evidence speak. My hands rested calmly on the folder, my pulse steady. I had been underestimated. They had all miscalculated. Mark's jaw tightened. Emily shifted beside him. His eyes darted to me, desperate for a signal, a gesture, anything that would buy him control. There was none. I leaned slightly forward. "I'm not here to punish," I said quietly, letting the silence stretch. "I'm here to be seen, to reclaim what has been ignored for too long." The room absorbed the words like a pulse. They did not need more. The HR manager gestured toward the door. "Please stay after this meeting," she said. Mark's hands twitched. He looked at me, searching, but found only calm. I exhaled slowly, letting the truth settle. The room was heavy, silent. Each tick of the clock measured the final moments of a life he had thought he controlled. I did not smirk. I did not gloat. I simply held my power quietly, deliberately. After the meeting, the sun hit my face as I stepped outside. The rain from the night before had left streets glistening, puddles reflecting the light. I inhaled deeply, feeling my lungs expand. The city hummed with ordinary life. Cars drove past, voices drifted, but I moved through it differently. No longer invisible, not underestimated. My steps were deliberate, each one a reminder that I had control. Back at the apartment, Tyler unpacked a small backpack, oblivious to the shift in our lives. I watched him, feeling the tension in my shoulders melt. The envelope that Mark had received rested safely in my desk drawer. Not a weapon, not a trophy, just proof that deliberate, careful action works. I had reclaimed myself, quietly, deliberately, powerfully. That night, alone with a cup of tea, I looked out the window. City lights flickered in the distance. The air smelled faintly of rain. I allowed myself a small, private smile. This was only the beginning. The life I had reclaimed was mine to shape. I had been underestimated for too long. Now I would be deliberate, patient, and unstoppable. And anyone listening, anyone feeling invisible, must remember this. Power begins with reclaiming yourself, one deliberate step at a time. The knock at the door startled me. It was early, the sky still gray with the residue of overnight rain. I hadn't expected anyone. I opened it slowly. Carla stood there holding a brown paper bag. Her eyes were wide. "I thought you might need breakfast," she said. I nodded, taking it. The weight in my chest eased slightly. Small gestures mattered. I set the bag on the kitchen counter and began unpacking. Bagels, fruit, coffee cups, a note in her handwriting. "You're stronger than you know." Tyler wandered into the kitchen, still in pajamas, rubbing his eyes. "Morning," he mumbled. I crouched, brushing his hair back. "Morning, kiddo." He gave a small smile. That was enough. I poured coffee for both of us. The steam curled upward, warm and grounding. The apartment was quiet except for the hum of the refrigerator and the occasional car passing outside. I let myself feel the normal, the mundane, as if each small act reminded me I still had control over ordinary life. By 10:30, I was in the car, folder in the passenger seat. I drove slowly toward the firm, the city streets still damp. The world was alive with movement, but I felt insulated, almost detached. My mind traced every step I would take, every document I would present. Each detail mattered, each move calculated. I wasn't just entering the building, I was entering my power. The receptionist looked up. I smiled faintly and walked past without hesitation. The elevator doors closed with a soft ding. My pulse was steady. My hands relaxed on the strap of my bag. Mark and Emily were in the conference room already. The moment I entered, their chatter ceased. Mark's eyes widened. Emily's fingers gripped the chair. Confusion, recognition, fear. The room's air shifted, subtle but undeniable. I set the folder on the table. Credit card statements, receipts, emails, meeting notes, every irregularity highlighted, every transaction traced. Mark's lips parted, then closed. His posture stiffened. He tried to speak. The words faltered. The HR manager, tall, precise, stepped forward. "This will be reviewed immediately," she said. Mark's confidence wavered. Emily glanced at him, unsettled. The evidence laid out quietly spoke louder than any confrontation could. I leaned slightly forward, keeping my hands on the folder. "I'm not here to punish," I said softly. "I'm here to be seen, to reclaim what has been ignored for too long." The silence stretched. The weight of the truth pressed down. Mark's hands clenched into fists. He looked at me, searching for a signal, any sign of weakness. There was none. My calm was a wall he could not breach. I opened another section. Bank transfers, expense reports, call logs, every irregularity traced, every lie documented. The room remained still. Mark's team exchanged glances. Emily shifted, uncomfortable. Each piece of evidence revealed my patience, my preparation, my understanding of a system he had thought he controlled. And he realized finally that he had underestimated me. The HR manager gestured toward the door. "Please remain after this meeting," she said. Mark's hands twitched. His eyes flicked toward me, searching for the leverage he thought he had. There was none. I exhaled slowly, letting the quiet assert itself. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't shout. I let the facts speak. I let the room recognize what had always been true. When I stepped outside, the rain had stopped. The streets glistened, reflecting the soft morning light. I inhaled deeply, feeling the cool air fill my lungs. The city moved on around me, indifferent, ordinary. I walked through it differently, not invisible, not underestimated. I had reclaimed my authority. I had reclaimed myself. Each step was deliberate, steady, controlled. Back at the apartment, Tyler unpacked his backpack, oblivious to the storm I had just passed through. I watched him, feeling the tension in my shoulders melt. I had not sought revenge. I had sought clarity. I had sought control. And in claiming that, I had reclaimed my life. The envelope that Mark had received rested in my safe, not as a weapon, not as a trophy, but as proof that careful, deliberate action works. And as the sun climbed higher, lighting the room in gold, I whispered to myself, underestimated for years, invisible for decades, not anymore. Today I am deliberate. Today I am steady. Today I am unstoppable. Step by step, choice by choice, I am building the life I was always meant to live. The taxi pulled up to the courthouse just as the morning sun hit the glass facade. I paid the driver, the coins clinking in my hand, and took a deep breath. The air was cool, crisp, carrying the faint smell of coffee from a nearby cafe. Tyler's hand brushed against mine. "Are you ready, Mom?" His voice was small, cautious. I nodded. "I am." We stepped onto the steps together. The stone felt solid under my feet. Every step was deliberate. Every step was mine. Inside, the lobby smelled faintly of polished wood and disinfectant. People moved quickly, papers clutched, heels clicking on tile. I kept my head down, walked with calm, and let the crowd pass around me. My folder rested against my side, every document carefully organized, every note, every statement, every record meticulously verified. This was my armor. This was my power. In the conference room, Mark was already there. Emily sat slightly behind him, fidgeting with her phone. Their eyes flicked toward me. Mark tried to smile. It didn't reach his eyes. I felt nothing but focus. I placed the folder on the table, opened it just enough to reveal the top pages. Receipts, emails, credit statements, records of transactions, each one a reminder of every time I had been ignored, underestimated, dismissed. The lawyer across from me, a tall man with silver hair named James Whitman, adjusted his glasses. "Everything here is in order?" he asked. I nodded. Every detail. Verified. He leaned back slightly, impressed, but his expression remained neutral. Mark shifted uncomfortably in his seat, his hands clenched, unclenched, and clenched again. I could see the tightness in his jaw, the tension in his shoulders. I opened another section of the folder, transfer logs, expense reports, meeting notes. My gaze never left Mark. Emily glanced up, her face pale, a small flicker of doubt crossing her eyes. She had assumed I was powerless, invisible. She had misjudged me. I let the silence stretch. The weight of every ignored comment, every dismissed opinion, every underestimated move pressed down on him now. The HR representative stepped forward. "This requires immediate attention," she said clearly. Mark exhaled sharply, a small sound I could almost hear as relief and panic collided. He tried to speak. I didn't let him. I leaned slightly forward. "I am not here to embarrass," I said. "I am here to be recognized, to show that ignoring, dismissing, or underestimating me no longer works." The tension in the room thickened. His team shifted uneasily. Emily's fingers traced the edge of her phone, her lips pressed tight. Mark's eyes darted around, seeking an ally, a way out, anything. There was none. I was calm, steady, present, in control. For years, they had assumed otherwise. For years, they had believed I could be pushed aside, silenced, dismissed. Now, every miscalculation was laid bare. I closed the folder slowly. The sound of the paper sliding against the wood was sharp, deliberate. The silence stretched. Mark's mouth opened, closed, opened again. He was searching for words. None came. Emily's gaze met his. The realization passed between them, unspoken but heavy. They had misjudged me, underestimated me, and they had been wrong. I gathered the folder, stood, each movement deliberate, measured, quiet but commanding. I walked toward the door, letting them see the calm I carried. Each step echoed softly on the polished floor. The sunlight from the windows hit my face, warm and steady. Outside, the city moved on, indifferent, but I felt the shift within me. I had taken my place. I had been seen. Tyler's small hand found mine again as we stepped outside. I breathed in deeply. The air smelled of spring, of new beginnings. I looked at him and smiled. Today was a victory, not in spite of the past, but because I had endured it. I had reclaimed control. I had reclaimed dignity. And I knew, quietly, firmly, that nothing in the future could take that away from me. If you have ever been underestimated, overlooked, or dismissed, know this: control, dignity, and power are not given. They are claimed. Step forward. Claim what is yours. Take it slowly, deliberately, and never let anyone convince you otherwise. The elevator doors opened and I stepped out, feeling the polished stone under my shoes. The morning light reflected off the windows of the high rise, and the city buzzed quietly below. Tyler squeezed my hand. "Mom, are you sure about this?" His voice was small, uncertain. I nodded, keeping my eyes ahead. "I am. We do this together." Inside the office, the receptionist looked up. I gave a faint smile and walked past. Each step on the tile felt deliberate. The conference room door loomed ahead. I opened it slowly. Mark was there, seated with his team, Emily perched at the edge of his chair. Their chatter ceased instantly. Confusion, then recognition, passed over Mark's face. I placed the folder carefully on the table, letting the papers slide open. Receipts, bank statements, emails, call logs, every irregularity highlighted, each page a reflection of years of dismissal, underestimation, neglect. Mark's hands clenched. Emily's fingers trembled against the edge of her phone. The HR manager leaned forward, voice calm, deliberate. "This requires immediate review," she said. Mark swallowed sharply. The confident mask he always wore had dissolved. I remained standing, arms slightly forward, steady. I did not speak unnecessarily. The evidence spoke. Every overlooked detail, every unheeded warning, every time I had been invisible now became visible to everyone in the room. The tension thickened, subtle but undeniable. Mark's jaw tightened. He searched for words, found none. Emily's eyes darted to him, then to me, realizing the misjudgment she had made. I opened another section. Transfers between accounts, expense reports, notes from meetings. Every detail aligned, documented, verified. I let the silence stretch. Each tick of the clock felt measured, deliberate, like the universe marking the final moments of their assumptions about me. Mark shifted, trying to find a foothold. There was none. I held control quietly, deliberately. The HR manager gestured toward the door. "Please remain after this meeting," she said. Mark's hands twitched. His eyes darted around the room, searching for an escape, an ally, a hint of mercy. There was none. I exhaled slowly, letting the calm assert itself. I did not raise my voice. I did not shout. I let clarity, preparation, and quiet authority do the work. I gathered the folder, walked toward the door. My steps were slow, deliberate, measured. The sunlight streaming through the windows hit my face, warm and steady. Outside, the city carried on, oblivious. The ordinary moved around me, but I felt different. I was seen. I was steady. I was powerful. Not through anger, not through confrontation, but through control and intention. Tyler's hand found mine again as we exited. I inhaled deeply, the cool air filling my lungs. I felt the rhythm of the city pulse alongside mine, solid, steady. Each breath reminded me that I had been underestimated for years. Each step reminded me that invisibility had ended. I had reclaimed my authority, my dignity, my life. Back at the apartment, I unpacked a small box of personal items, arranging them on the shelves. Each object a marker of independence, of control, of life rebuilt. Tyler stacked his school books beside mine, oblivious to the tension we had left behind. I ran my fingers over the smooth wood of the desk, over the envelope I had placed in the safe. Not a trophy, not a weapon. Evidence that careful, deliberate action works. The afternoon sunlight shifted, golden and soft. I sat quietly, letting the room settle around me. The power of being underestimated had been mine to reclaim. Quietly, deliberately, step by step. Each choice mattered. Each moment of calm was a victory. And I knew firmly that the world would never see me as powerless again. For anyone listening, anyone feeling overlooked, invisible, underestimated, power is claimed, not given. Step forward. Take control. Each small decision, each deliberate action becomes a foundation for your strength, and the world will notice eventually that the one they underestimated is the one who walks away in control, steady, unshakable. The sunlight hit my face through the blinds, sharp and bright, the kind that cuts through lingering shadows. I stood by the window, coffee warm in my hands, feeling the apartment breathe around me. Tyler was at the table, his backpack open, pencils scattered, lost in homework. The quiet was thick, comforting, but I could feel it humming beneath my skin, the tension of all that had shifted, all that had changed. I dressed slowly, deliberately, Simple blouse, slacks, flats. I didn't need to impress anyone today. I only needed to be present, to step into the spaces where I had been invisible and claim them. Carla arrived with the car, steady as always. She glanced at me once, a small nod. No words needed. She understood. The streets were wet from the morning drizzle. The air smelled faintly of coffee and asphalt. I gripped the door handle, letting the cool steel ground me. At the firm, the receptionist barely looked up. I walked past, folder in hand, every step measured. The conference room door loomed ahead. Inside, Mark and Emily were already present, papers spread, murmurs quieting the instant I stepped in. Recognition hit his face. Confusion lingered. He opened his mouth. I did not let him speak. I placed the folder on the table, letting it slide open. Receipts, statements, emails, call logs, every irregularity documented. Mark's hands trembled slightly. Emily's eyes widened. The HR manager, tall, composed, leaned in. "We will review this immediately," she said, steady, precise. Mark shifted, trying to gather control. There was none. He searched for an ally in the room, found none. I exhaled slowly. The calm I carried pressed down on him, more potent than any argument, any gesture. I opened another section. Bank transfers, emails, expense notes. Each page laid bare the years of dismissal, neglect, and underestimation. Silence settled. The room felt heavier. Mark's jaw clenched. Emily shifted. The employees exchanged subtle glances, the tension stretching across the room. I did not speak more than necessary. Every fact, every detail, every line of evidence was enough. I leaned forward slightly. "I am not here to punish," I said, calm, deliberate. "I am here to be seen, to reclaim what has been ignored for too long." The words stretched, weighty, precise. Mark's hands tightened. He exhaled sharply. He tried to speak. Nothing coherent emerged. He realized fully that he had underestimated me, that for years he had misjudged what I could do. The HR manager motioned toward the door. "Please stay after this meeting," she said. Mark's eyes flicked to me, desperate, searching for mercy, for weakness. There was none. I had learned patience, observation, strategy. I had prepared quietly for years. Each action I took today was deliberate, measured, perfected through vigilance. I gathered the folder, walked toward the door. Each step echoed softly on polished tile. The sunlight through the windows caught my face, warm, steady. Outside, the city moved on, oblivious. Cars rolled by, voices murmured. But I felt different, visible, steady, powerful. Not through anger, not through theatrics, through control and intention. Tyler's small hand found mine again. The cool air brushed our faces. I inhaled deeply, letting it fill my lungs, steady my mind. I had been underestimated, invisible, dismissed. Not anymore. I had reclaimed authority, dignity, life. Each step away from the office reinforced it. I was deliberate, I was present, I was unshakable. Back at the apartment, I set the folder in the safe. Not a trophy, not a weapon. Evidence that patience, preparation, and calm action work. Tyler stacked his homework neatly beside mine. I breathed in the quiet. This was power, measured and deliberate. I had been invisible. Now I was visible. And anyone who has ever been underestimated, anyone who has felt overlooked, must know this. You can reclaim your life. Step forward deliberately, claim it, and let no one convince you otherwise. If you are listening, take this as your reminder. Begin today. One step, one choice, one deliberate act at a time. Your life, your dignity, and your strength are yours to reclaim. The world will notice eventually, and when it does, it will see exactly who you are. Unstoppable.